Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbin'minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Today we're looking at the realities of being a Nigerian in 2024. Now, Nigeria joins the rest of the world in grappling with the high cost of living. Yeah, there are some peculiarities when it comes to Nigeria as a result of some of the decisions made by the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, last year when he assumed office. Decisions such as the floating of the naira and also the removal of subsidy on PMS, and we also have the increase on tariff for Band A. And what we've seen is that the cost of living, from housing to transportation to food, has just skyrocketed. Nigerians are having to grapple with high prices, and unfortunately, the salaries, the wages are just not commensurate. And with the floating of the naira being such an import-dependent country, we're seeing things double, triple. Let's look at the price of PMS, which has gone 3 times. We're spending 3 times as much as we did 9 months ago. What about essentials like a bag of rice? Double the price. And these are some of the realities that Nigerians have to grapple with. Now, to discuss this, I have with me a communications consultant, Daniel Oladoja Bright. Welcome to Rubbin'minds.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. We also have joining us virtually on Zoom, the founder of Policy Shapers, Ebenezer Wikina. Ebenezer, welcome to Rubbin'minds.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, I'll start with you, Daniel. I saw you kind of nodding along while I was doing the introductions. These realities that I spoke about, is that something that you are also grappling with as a Nigerian? How are you able to survive compared in 2023 to 2024? What is the reality for you?
I think that you've pretty much summarized everything. You've painted a very accurate picture of what the reality is on the ground. And there's really, let's not sugarcoat things. It's grim on the ground, and Nigerians are grappling with multidimensional crisis, right? We're talking about inflation at a record high, right? The numbers are now being compared to what we had in the early 2000s, like year 2000. And we're talking about the price of, this is a PMS-driven economy, and that commodity is now 3 times what it used to be. Food inflation is at an all-time high. Inflation itself is at a record number. And what that means is that when all these levers of the economy are moving in such manners, it definitely puts a lot of pressure on the common Nigerian, on the average people, on the average citizen. And how are people coping? I think it's a miracle. Let's just say that the one thing that is constantly talked about for Nigerians is the resilient spirit of the Nigerian person. The fact that we are very, very adaptive. Yeah, when fuel subsidy, for instance, was removed last year, for the first 1 week, the roads were empty. And then give or take 3 weeks later, everything just kind of like gradually came back to normal. Nigerians are very adaptive. They're very resilient people.
So we're finding a way in the midst of it all to just manage our way just to go better, that resilient spirit of the Nigerian. I'll move to Ebenezer, and I'm posing the same question to you. What's the reality like for the average person, and how are you grappling with some of these shocks and these new realities?
Yeah, no, thank you. The realities are really grim, just as Daniel said rightly. I think that it's a mix of so many things happening at the same time. He spoke about the PMS issue, but there's also the big issue of insecurity, where Nigerians now can no longer travel from state to state without the fear of being kidnapped. And if you say you want to fly, the cost of flying has now gone times 3, just as the cost of every other thing. So, so even like transportation, house rents, my wife and I for a long time, kept searching for a house this year, and we couldn't find, because like the cost of rent had gone times 3 as well. Like, so even like where to stay, the basic need of a human being looking for a place to stay, we also can't find that as well. So yeah, so everything has just gone triple, and I think it's a mixture of having problems on different layers. So we've had the different layers of problems add up to what we have now. There's the issue with inflation that's then also led to food inflation. But food inflation is caused by the fact that people are not able to farm, which is caused by insecurity. And I think the government has the body language of the government in responding to the issues around insecurity have been really poor. We haven't seen the president really strongly, and as well as the sub-national leaders as well as the governors, come out and strongly ask for the service chiefs to actually do something about insecurity. We heard the security operatives speak more about protests than we've ever heard them speak about insecurity. And I think that's very appalling. So I think you just have these various problems, and then you have the one with power as well. So, so if there's no power, you have to put on generator, and then you have to buy PMS. So all of these challenges just interlinked together, I think, are just making life really, really tough for Nigerians.
I'll move to you, Daniel. And my question is, in the midst of it all, Ebenezer had spoken about security, spoken about transportation, spoken about so many other issues. In the midst of it all, this government has said, look, we're taking those hard decisions now, like removing subsidy, so that we're able to invest in infrastructure. How long is the average Nigeria wait? How long does the average Nigeria have to wait before there's that light at the end of the tunnel? Are you hopeful that we're soon going to get to the end, and where we'll be seeing some of the dividends, some of the rewards of these tough decisions that have been made?
Well, I think that as you talked about hope and the painful decisions that have been taken, the first thing I'd like to say is that it's wisdom that when you want to conduct a surgery, you have to give something called anesthesia. I think what has happened here is that an open surgery is being conducted. A very painful procedure is being conducted without anesthesia. There are no measures to absorb the shock of the reforms that have been put in place. And painful decisions have to be made. All through the campaign period, the 3 front-line candidates agreed that these decisions have to be made. So it's not given that these things have to be done. But what has caused this chaos right now is that these things have been done. It's like an open surgery has been conducted or has been initiated without anesthesia. So people are facing the pain of that process with their open eyes and full consciousness, right? And so what has to be done? Do I see light at the end of the tunnel?
Like that recovery period, when does the pain now wear out? When do we get out of that pain from the post-surgery?
The post-surgery pain. The question is the surgery over? That's the question we need to ask, the first question. The second question is this surgery successful? Has it been a successful surgery? Will there be a need to reopen the patient? Are there things that have gone wrong? Are there complications? What if there have been we don't even know if there have been complications along the way. Only the person conducting the surgery knows what's going on. The only thing that we, the patients, are feeling is the excruciating pain. We don't know whether, before we even begin to talk about recovery, we have to talk about this has been successful, right? The patient is stable and all of that. And then we can talk about recovery. But right now, we're not even sure that what has been initiated has been done correctly. It has been successful before recovery. And I think that as an average Nigerian, hope is not a survival strategy. Hope helps you get through some part of the pain. But the problem with hope is that hope has an expiry date, right? And that's why the scriptures say that hope that is deferred makes the heart weary, right? Hope itself can lead to frustration at some point. So we cannot over-rely on hope. Yeah, we're talking about renewed hope as the mantra for the government, but we cannot over-rely on hope. At some point, we have to begin to see tangible, measurable, concise improvements in the condition of the economy, so that, because hope has to draw from something, unlike faith that feeds on the invisible, hope has to draw from something.
We need to start seeing those fruits. I'm going to pose those questions because they're very interesting to Ebenezer, which is to say, okay, is 1 year, is that too early to start asking for how effective these decisions are? Or do we need to give it another 1 year? Do we need to give it some months? In your own opinion, has this surgery been successful? Have these painful decisions delivered on what they promised so far?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Isabel. And I'll stick to Daniel's metaphor of the surgery. I think that it makes a lot of sense. And I think the answer is that the surgery really hasn't really started much. We have started to take out some of the important, maybe touch on some of the important organs, things like subsidy and then floating the naira to know the real value of the currency, etc. But I think there's still some fundamental issues like the cost of governance, for example. We can't say we're conducting a surgery to save the economy when the administration then puts in the highest ever number of people in the cabinet. If you add the ministers and the SSAs and the SAs, we have almost 70 people in the cabinet. I mean, I don't think you can do surgery by worsening things, right? Every administration has spoken about the Orasanye report and how there's a need to implement the reports. I mean, there was a press conference a couple of months ago by the current administration about that, but we can't see anything. So you can't really say 1 year is too short, because I think that you can begin to take those small steps that are needed to begin to infuse those changes. So if you even look at just the spending of the subnational and national governments, if you say you don't have money, there's a way you spend. I mean, even us as individuals, when we are broke, we budget, we plan. We don't buy new jets. We don't add more people to the cabinet. We don't spend on frivolous things that really do not show that. And that's why we're having foreign countries now, or foreigners now, seize our jets. Because we can tell them that we don't have money, but we're buying a new jet. You're owing someone, or you're buying a new jet. You're spending money on new things. You're traveling much more than ever before. So I think that surgery really hasn't started. And it's a sad news. I think that if we really do want to take that surgery on just as we're supposed to, because that's the only way for us to get out of this mess. If you really want to do that surgery, there are many fundamental steps that the government needs to take. And I think one of them really is the cost of governance that needs to be lowered to barest minimum at the national and subnational levels.
I'll move that conversation to you, which is the cost of governance. And I also want you to look at it holistically, because a lot of times the attention is on the president, is on the governors, but then you have the local government, and now we see that they have autonomy when it comes to the use of their funds. And then we also have our senators, we have our House of Reps, we have our councillors. So that cost of governance, is it such an important part of this surgery? Is it so important that we start to cut down the cost of governance if we want to fix the economy?
Yeah, that's inevitable. But realistically, one of the things we have to do when we have conversations about Nigeria is be very, very pragmatic, right? There are some things are easy to demand, but are they easy to implement, right? If you will not be frustrated when discussing Nigeria, you have to separate the ideal from the pragmatic. You have to be very, very realistic.
So what's pragmatic in this scenario?
What is pragmatic in this scenario is that we have seen that the House of Assembly as a whole have turned a deaf ear to the calls for Nigerians to cut their costs. Yes, they said they took a break in salary and all of that. That is not the main thing. We're all smart. We all know what's going on. But you've pointed out to a very critical organ of government, which is grassroots leadership. Now the local governments have autonomy. And we have to be proactive in the sense that globally, I mean, not globally, but I have had an experience of being in the US for a couple of weeks for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And in my interaction with the government leaders in that place, I realized how beautiful grassroots leadership is. So, for instance, I was in UC Davis in California, and the mayor of the city of Davis actually happened to be a professor from Yale, right? So you have someone who is an erudite scholar, someone who had worked at Yale, someone who had studied at Yale. He's smart, he's intelligent.
And he's at the local government.
And he is the mayor of the city of Davis. I had a bicycle ride with this gentleman around the city of Davis, and I saw the thinking that goes into the function of that city, how they design the bicycle lanes. That's not the prerogative of the governor. Sacramento is just like an hour from Davis, but Davis is completely disconnected from Sacramento. They think for themselves. And there's a lot of consultation that goes into how Davis is designed, because Davis as a city can make its decision. We have to redesign and rejig our government in such a way that grassroots leadership is effective. Take, for instance, pipe-borne water. You don't need the governor of the state to provide you pipe-borne water. If you have a river system around the local government, you can have a dam, right? You can have bicycle lanes in the city. Now, the problem with Nigeria is that we are very, very monolithic in our thinking. Everything is one way. Everybody relies on either a motorcycle or a bus or a car. Everything uses petrol.
So you're saying this innovative thinking should come from the grassroots. It should come from the local government.
There is nowhere.
We can't expect the president in Abuja to come and be solving the issues that have been delegated to the elected representatives at
the
local
grassroots
level.
The point is that every family, there's a reason why every family has a father and a mother.
I'd like to get Ebenezer's opinions on this with the local government, with the president giving autonomy. In the few weeks that has happened, have we seen some kind of proactiveness with local government officials? Have we seen them showing their muscle? Have we seen them coming out to identify with the people? Because they should be the ones closest to us at the local level. They should be the ones listening to the people at the grassroots. Have we felt that?
I don't think we have in most states. I think that there's still some bit of fundamental work that needs to go into ensuring that we allow the local government really is as autonomous as we want it to be. Currently, it's not autonomous, because even if you do say that the money for the local government gets paid directly to the local government, the state governors still have power in deciding who becomes local government chairpersons. They still have power over the RESEC. They appoint whoever becomes the state electoral commissioner, and who that person becomes loyal to them, and that's the person who then conducts the local government election. So I feel there's still some fundamental laws, and these are the things that you think that National Assembly should be thinking about, right? When we talk about giving autonomy, you start thinking about what are the legal frameworks that would ensure that autonomy actually does exist. So I actually do agree with Daniel when he says that, that the grassroots and the local level actually does have a huge role to play, and we need to see our local government chairpersons bringing local solutions to our problems, because we can't expect the national to come down to us. But I think that the job of a president in most countries, most developing countries, is to be a role model. The president's job is to set the standard as a national leader for what is obtainable at the states and local level. So if the president is telling state governors, don't spend money, it means that he's also not spending money. If the president is telling local government people, ensure that you're able to meet the needs, it means that his budget is also reflecting in the need that it's not just like you don't have federal and local government budget. You have one budget, right? And the allocation goes all the way down to the local level. So I think we need to see that kind of setting the pace and role modeling that I think we need to see at the local level. I think the president has a huge role to play in that light.
So that's leadership by example. And is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu leading by example? Is he leading by example in cutting down the cost of governance? Is he leading by example in showing that renewed hope, saying, look, I'm asking you Nigerians to take these tough decisions and bear with us, because I'm also depriving myself of certain things? Do you feel that coming from our president? Is he in tune with the people?
Well, if we're going by the decisions and the choices that have been made recently, I really don't get that sense of that we're all pulling in the same direction. So if we're saying that we're going to embrace austerity and we're going to run a lean government, then to start with, we're not even going to have the number of cabinets that we have right now. We're not going to have the number of aides. We're not going to invest in the things that have been invested in, except that maybe the president has a different definition of what he's trying to implement, right? Maybe tough system of government. I mean, maybe toughness means something different for him. And sometimes it's paradoxical how governance sometimes happens, that you could parrot something and do something differently. And a lot of times this have been blamed on a lot of factors, like people say, oh, it's not the leader, it's the people surrounding the leader and all of that. The leadership
or is the past administration,
or he's in an echo chamber and all of that. There are always excuses that are given. But let's call a spade. what we've seen is a dissonance between what is being said and what is being done. The investments, the priorities do not align with the things that have been said in terms of government direction, or maybe this is, and you know that there's a way media works. Sometimes narratives take on a life of their own without being given. So if around you there's a narrative that keeps on going, it then becomes like a mantra for everyone around you, even though you never supported it or you never said it. One thing we know that the president has said expressly is that he's going to take tough decisions. Has he expressly committed to cutting down the cost of government? I don't know. Has he expressly come out to say this is what he wants to do? Yes, perhaps he has said that, but we're not seeing it being done. Of course, recently, the presidential aid on climate change, for instance, came out to say that we've been able to reduce the cost of COP29 by about $10 billion. Fantastic. That is beautiful. $10 billion is huge saving. But how about other things that have been spent?
So the priority really needs to be in line with what is being said. Thank you so much, Daniel Oladoja Bright, a communications consultant, and also our guest who joined us via Zoom, Ebenezer Wikina, founder of Policy Shapers. That's all we can take on this segment of Rubbin'minds.